Hi, listeners. Welcome back. I'm Nedra Glover Tawab, and you need to hear this. Do you believe that relationships can be easy? I mean, have you ever experienced that? Like you have this long-term friendship and it's just, we get along so well. We don't have a lot of arguments. We understand each other. So we're very respectful of each person's need for space or this person's need for this or that. Like, have you had some friendships that feel easy? They don't feel like work. It feels, very organic and, things typically work, I think sometimes we think that relationships have to be tough. We have been sold this idea that relationships should be tough, even friendships, like you have your ups and downs, you have communication issues. And I think that is the case sometimes, but we have to notice when it is always the case. Are all of our friendships characterized by the same type of ending? Do we have the same ending? If so, we are writing the same book. Are we having the same type of disputes? Every time I have a friend, we fight about this. How is it that we get ourselves into the same situations over and over again? I'll tell you how. We're not learning anything new and we're not implementing anything different. When we do the same things, we have the same problems in our relationships. I, think that one thing about friendship is we are meeting people where they are. What does that mean? If you have a friend who doesn't like to work out with you, you don't work out with that person. You find another friend or another person in your life to feel that need. If your friend shares some information with you and you disagree with it, you have to figure out, is this the sort of person that appreciates honesty? Or is this the sort of person where I have to zip it up? Sometimes we're not asking ourselves those questions and we are just giving people stuff and we're just making requirements of them. And it impacts our friendships. It causes lots of issues either on their side or our side. Sometimes we are overgiving. Sometimes we are, saying yes to things that we need to say no to. So on both sides, we have to respect who the person is, not who we want them to be. It isn't build a friend. It's have a friendship. And sometimes we're trying to build a friend. And if I am truly your friend, that might come with some, limitations in our relationship. And I can pick that up with other friends. I don't have to stick beside you as if you're the only person in the world. Perhaps there are other people. The other thing I notice with our friendships is we let things go on for too long. Usually when we end a friendship, it's been ending for a very long time. We've been having this issue for a very long time. I was in your wedding. You didn't want to be in my wedding. I won't say anything about it. You could do whatever you want to do. But 8 years later, oh my gosh, I'm so mad at your tea party. I bring up this thing, right? Having those conversations pretty close to the time of the impacting event is really important. 8 years later, people don't even remember this thing because it wasn't a big thing to them. So having those conversations around the time of the offense could be key to repairing and being able to move forward in those relationships. So if you have not thought about oh my gosh, I'm having this issue with this person, how do I have this hard conversation? You might have to sit with that for a very long time and the person may not change. They will continue to be themselves and you will be stuck with being mad at them and them having no idea. Let's get into today's call, which you've guessed it. It's about friendship. It's about a long-term friendship filled with ups and downs. So let's see how we can help.
Hi, Nedra. I love your podcast, and I have a couple of questions that relate to long-term friendships and navigating conflict. So I've been friends with someone, a woman, for over 10 years, and we're part of a friend group that's been close for the same amount of time. So this friendship with this person has been filled with a lot of ups and downs, a lot of, arguments, disagreements, and quite a bit of drama since we became friends over 10 years ago. A bit about me, I've struggled with communication in various relationships, so romantic, friendships, etc. Such as communicating my needs, what works for me, what doesn't, my boundaries, etc. It's something I've been actively working on, and it's something over the past 5 years that I've really put in a lot of effort for. And since I've started to communicate my needs and my boundaries a bit better over the years, I've noticed that this friendship has been struggling quite a bit lately. I won't go into details about some of the issues, but a couple of years ago, there was a lot of drama around one of our friends' wedding, who's also in the group. And there's just been other issues that have come up, kind of about different issues, but a lot of them centering around this person's reactivity. So this person tends to react really quickly and sometimes quite harshly. When something upsets them, they then disappear or ghost me or our group for periods of time. So it could be like days, weeks, or even months. And then either it's myself or someone else in the group, or maybe this person, she will just reach out when she feels like making contact, and then she acts like nothing's happened.
Addressing ghosting can be really hard, right? But I think the way that you address this is you talk about how it made you feel to be out of contact with that person. When you didn't answer my calls, I felt really sad because I thought we were close and we could talk about things. And I understand you're upset, but at least give me a simple response so that I know what's going on. I hear that your communication challenges and all types of relationships have stopped you from, communicating well. And in this situation, it sounds like you haven't said anything about this person sort of having these dramatic moments with people and then ghosting, maybe even before he or she can be confronted. So here's the thing. There are some people in our lives who are high drama. Do we want to pull them into every situation with us? I think we have to be careful about what spaces we share with the high drama people. Maybe keeping them away from our other people is good. So if this friend is going to be in your wedding, I would expect some drama. It's not like, she's not this sort of person. It's a one-off. It sounds like this is a typical response for this person. And I understand for, some of us, that's really hard to accept that this person is just being themselves. When they have an opinion about something, they harshly express it. And so if you don't want your guests or your other friends to be offended, you may need to exclude this person from this group stuff. When they're having this moment, you might have to be the person to stand up and diffuse it. Hey, I see that this is getting out of hand. Let's change the topic because this is getting really heated. You have to really own the interactions when this person is present if you want them to be there. And I know, with communication challenges, that can be really hard because you're communicating. You are owning the space. You are saying, I am the authority here. I am the facilitator. This can and this cannot happen. So we will talk more about how to communicate after the break.
I have let this behavior go on for years with not being addressed, and so have other people in the group. It has only really been more recently that I've been working on addressing it, as I find this behavior really hurtful. So more recently, there was a time this past summer where I and some others in the group also let this friend down. We all handled it differently, but of course it's complex because we're a group and it's a group dynamic. So I did apologize for my role. She apologized for my role. And then I tried to figure out how we could move forward with our friendship and the situation. But this friend, while she had apologized, she was not ready to move on, which I understand. But she was just, kind of going in circles, blaming me and blaming others in the friend group. So on the one hand, I understand that she was upset and she needed time to process. She wanted to keep talking about it. But I also didn't want to hear these not nice things about me and about our other friends in the group. It just wasn't a conversation that I could continue engaging with. So, of course, I know friendship group dynamics can be really tricky. And I've really struggled over the past 5 years or so, setting boundaries and communicating my needs with people and specifically with this person. So, after this summer incident, I knew I needed some time and space from her. I told her she wouldn't hear from me for a while as I wasn't sure if or how we could be friends in the future. And I'm finding that since I haven't communicated clearly throughout most of the friendship, that I just have so much resentment and anger towards this person, which is really a result of my own lack of action. So it's impacting, how I show up in the friendship and how I showed up in that conversation. And I guess I just need some time to figure out how or if I can be friends with this person again.
We may focus on the worst case scenario when ending a relationship, like, oh, people will ask about them. They won't be at this thing. I'll miss them. It might be to our benefit to look at the positives around not being in relationships with certain people. For example, I will have less anxiety. I will feel more comfortable in group settings. I will have easier friendships. I will have more time to spend with people I love who are healthy for me. There could be some positives that we're overlooking because we're thinking about like, oh, I have to say this, I have to do this. But, in this caller's case, it sounds like you've already said it. So I wonder, how do you commit to it if that's what you want to do? We don't have to be, friends with people because we've been friends with them for 10 years. Like, the average friendship is around 7 years and 10 is pretty good. I have some friends who, thankfully, we've been friends 20 plus years, 25 plus years. And that is beautiful. But guess what? I've had some friends, we were friends for 1 year. I have some friends, we were friends for 6 months. I have some, we were friends for 10 years. So everybody isn't going to be on the lifelong journey. Those friendships I've had for, the long haul so far, easy. Oh my gosh, so easy. I could take them around anyone and they almost steal my other friends. And, I'll say like, don't steal my friend. I don't want to see her at your stuff. It's like, that's my friend. I only hang out with good people. Of course you would like her. Of course she's wonderful. But we have to think about what our friends are representing while we have them with other people. What am I reflecting as a part of me? I love it when people love my other friends. I have one friend right now, and he's so fun. And everybody is like, why didn't you bring him? Where is he? I went to a concert recently and he was there with some other friends, and all of my friends, they were like, he's here. Like, it's like, okay, guys, he is a great person. And it's really great when you have those situations where it's like, that's how it could be, that you're around people who are excited to be around each other. Not like, oh my gosh, here she comes. I know she's going to get into a fight with someone. Perhaps we've adopted like this housewives way of friendship. Like, this stuff is now normal, to have fights and then meet up again. I think it's the oddest thing that we feel we have to be in those relationships that are chaotic. We have a choice. And that choice could be not to deal with all of this high drama conflict. And if you're going to deal with it, go join the cast of the Housewives. Go join Married to Medicine or something. Like, make a job out of it. Don't invite this stuff into your real life. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to be an adult with so many other pools in your life. When I think about making dentist appointments, cooking dinner, folding my clothes, working, being a daughter, doing this, doing that, do we actually have space for people to just take up and waste? Do we have space to, you only get 4 hours after work to hang out, and you go hang out and it's arguing and fighting the whole time? Is that what we're making space for? We have to prioritize our life overall and how this person fits into it. It could be that this friendship is paused. It could be that this friendship is outside of this group dynamic. It could be that there are a lot of difficult conversations had because you want to improve it. And I'm not talking about from her side. I'm talking about from your side. You will see me doing these things differently based on some of the things that have occurred in our dynamic. She may not change, but you can. You can say, I'm going to start being a little more assertive. So when I see a conversation, getting a bit heated, I may just loudly say, let's change the topic. Or I may say, hey, step outside with me. You will notice me doing these things because I'm trying to change the rhythm of this group. If you truly have an issue with setting boundaries, communicating with people in general, this could be an opportunity for you to improve that. Set Boundaries, Find Peace is a book you could read. We Need to Talk is another great book, but there are so many great books about how to communicate. And most importantly, finding resources that help you communicate when communicating is hard. It's not an easy thing. And I often think that we assume that people who communicate find it to be really easy. And it could be just the opposite. Like, I sometimes will communicate because I have to, because I don't want to be uncomfortable. I want to sleep without having these ruminating thoughts about what happened with us. I want to be able to have a good day. So I have to say this thing to you. It's not that I want to. I don't want to say this, but I have to say it because if I don't, I'm going to be up all night. If I don't say it, I'm going to be upset. If I don't say it, when I see you, I'm going to be giving you a little bit of side eye. And so if I really want to be authentic, I have to speak up, because if I don't speak up, I'm suffering. I'm suffering. Let's keep listening.
So basically, to sum up, my questions are, how do I move forward here? How do I decide if I want to be friends with this person? Is it possible to mend a relationship or friendship where one person has been brushing things under the rug for so long? Is there just a point where it's just too late and there's nothing left to salvage? I guess my other question is, how can we navigate conflict effectively in long-term friendships and in group dynamics? And, how do we determine if a friendship is salvageable, or, is it time to just move on and kind of give up on the friendship? So I know those are a lot of questions, but I really would love to hear your thoughts on the topic. And I look forward to hearing from you.
I want to respond question by question. So here's the first question. How do I move forward? When we have some disruption or dysfunction in a relationship, it is important that we use some repair skills. Some of us are moving forward without repairing. And what happens is we find ourselves usually pretty quickly back in the same situation. We all know what happens when we don't repair something. It gets worse. It's like a little hole in a knitted sweater. If you don't mend that little tiny hole, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So we have to repair. So how do I move forward? You repair. You have a conversation about what happened and how things can be differently. You explore her feelings. You explore your feelings. You let it out. That's how you move forward. The next question, how do I decide if I want to be friends with this person? A pro and con list is always good for a friendship, for deciding if we want to take a job, move to a new city. What is the reason for wanting to do this? And what is the reason that we may not want to do this? So, pros. This person is fun to hang around. They're a great dancer. They have an infectious laugh. Cons. They're chaotic whenever we're in a group setting. When you bring up anything to them, they cut you off. Pros and cons, make a list. Next question. Is it possible to mend a relationship or friendship where one person has been brushing things under the rug for so long? Absolutely, yes. When we think about family relationships, that's typically the case, right? Like you've been letting something go for a really long time. And yes, it can happen in friendships and, dating relationships, all sorts of things. And as long as you're willing to talk about it today, there is still hope. If that person is willing to hear you out, there is still hope. Not everyone gets upset that you say, I've been having this issue for 5 years. It's helpful for the other person to know. There are some people who will be like, oh my gosh, this has been the problem. And then there are lots of people who will say, okay, let's address it. Next question. Is there just a point where it's too late and there's nothing left to salvage? I like to believe as long as people have breath, there's this possibility that we can salvage and repair things. However, I think it is okay to leave things that we really once loved. I had a tea thermos for, oh my gosh, maybe about 15 years. Maybe about 15 years I had this tea thermos. I think I got it for my 20th birthday, maybe my 19th or 20th birthday or something. I had this thing for a really long time. And I mean, it had taken falls, little dents in the sipping part, but I love this cup. Oh, hot temperature all day for my tea. The mouth spout was just perfect. Loved it. Dropped it. Bottom fell off. Dropped it again. And, the handle was cracked. So it became a point where, could I glue this? Could I find I don't even know who you find to fix a thing that you can, that's not replaceable, right? Like, is there someone who can put new rubber on the bottle? Like, I don't know. But for me, it was not salvageable because it was broken in ways where I couldn't even use it anymore. So I wonder, what are you trying to save? When we are trying to salvage something, it's really important to think about, what am I trying to save? Am I trying to save a thermos with half a handle and no bottom? No, I'm not trying to save that. Now I need to go to TJ Maxx and Marshall's and do a little cup hunt to find, maybe a similar, mouth spout. And I need to go on a hunt. But what I don't need to do is hunt for all these ways to repair something that's broken. Next question. How can we navigate conflict effectively in long-term friendships and group dynamics? We have to be honest with people. We have to bring up topics. The other day when we met, here was the problem. We don't need to let things go for too long, because once we let them go for too long, people think we didn't have an issue with it, or they forgot about it, or we forgot parts of the story. So if you want to effectively communicate in a long-term friendship, it's important to bring up the stuff. And sometimes that stuff might hurt the other person's feelings, and it still needs to be said. From hearing your voice, it doesn't sound like you would be mean or you would be aggressive. And I think that's the fear sometimes, that if I say this, it's going to be so mean. Well, tone matters. Sometimes we have to say hard stuff, but if you say it in your soft voice, I think it'll be kind and clear. Here is the last question. Is it time to just move on and kind of give up on this friendship? I cannot answer that for you. We all stay in relationships up until the point that we can't tolerate them anymore. Sometimes people will say, oh my gosh, that's too long. I can't believe you've been in that situation for so long. And it may feel like it hasn't been long enough for us. It is really hard to leave relationships even when we should. So it's not always, if people are mistreating you, you'll just get out of there. Yeah, if they do it the first day. But if you've been in a relationship with someone for, 10 plus years, it's a lot harder. You are intertwined into their life, their family. You have these things you do together. It can be quite challenging. But this is a question for you to answer. Has the damage been so big that you no longer want to be in this relationship? And I don't want you to think of so big as this person has committed a crime against you, or there is, some really major thing. So big is whenever I bring an issue to you, you stop talking to me. That could be your so big. So is that something that you would be able to live with continuing in a friendship? Because it might not be that this person stops it. You can have all these conversations and they say, okay, yes, sure. And they do the thing again. So is that something that you can tolerate in a friendship going forward? Because that might be a part of it. You need to hear this. One of the biggest ways that we change our relationships with other people is changing the way that we engage in those relationships. If you improve the way that you communicate, the communication in the relationship shifts. If you improve your attitude, the mood of the relationship is changed. Now, I'm not saying this other person has to do nothing, but there are a lot of times when we can do some, pretty significant changes on our own, and those things really do reflect in the relationship. If we are more disciplined with some things, every time this person does this thing, I'm going to do that. We can extinguish their behavior, but sometimes we'll, change our behavior once and they don't do it the next time and we just give up. So when you are having a relationship challenge, it could be wise for you to consider, what do I need to change here? You Need to Hear This is an iHeart production hosted by me, Nedra Glover Tawwab. Our executive producer is Joelle Bonique. Our senior producer and editor is Mia Dawn Taylor. Send us a voice memo with your questions about boundaries and relationships at youneedtohearthis@iheartmedia.com. Please be sure to rate our show wherever you listen to it and share this episode with someone who needs to hear this. Talk to you next time.